Good morning. It is such a joy to be home. You know, you have certain faiths that maybe say Jerusalem's their home, or Mecca, Rome, but this is my spiritual home, and it's so wonderful to come here. I first came here, the early 1970s. No activity center then, no inn then. My goodness. And I was telling some friends, we were driving from Atlanta, just like I did recently to go to the Fillmore Festival. And somebody had been here before and said, oh, you can see the tower from miles away. So about 100 miles out, we began looking for the tower. Geography was not my strong suit. But even without physically seeing it, there was a sense of it drawing us here. And those of you who live here, you need to hear how special it is, this place, and the grounds, and the lakes, and Phil Pearson, the golf course. So, you know, it's like you get out there. You know, I remember trying to play golf, and the greenskeeper paid me money to stay away. So, but it's good to be here. And I was asked if I might speak on some of the teachings of Fillmore. So this is the Fillmore month, the birth month. And my book that I have recently written is about healing and what I've learned from unity. I found healing in unity when doctors said I couldn't. My workshop will be about that. So I hope you can come by and at least say hello, stick your head in the door. We shared some of that during the Fillmore Festival, and wow, that was such a joy. Well, I want to talk on a sure remedy. How many of you know that little article? That's all? How many of you watching on live streaming? Do you know? Would you just kind of? A sure remedy. It is about forgiveness. And I don't know, if you say that's your title, I think people stay away. They don't want to hear talk of forgiveness. You're going to get that. And it's a major part of my book and a major part of my healing. And how many of you believe God has a sense of humor? Yeah, well, that's good, because just a day or so ago, I began to get this throaty kind of thing. I'm not usually this. I'm not a basso profundo. I'm a baritone, but not today. So you're just going to have to listen to this. A sure remedy, it's an article, you can get it, and I couldn't find mine in my files, so I went online. And you know where you go if you try to find some unity teaching? Mark Hicks, Truth Unity. Wow. What a contribution he has made to the unity movement. And the lead into A Sure Remedy by Charles Strickland, and you can get this. You can get this. But then the lead-in was an article that you found written by James Dillett Freeman that cites, and he wrote it in 1951, and he cites an article in July 1902 issue of Unity magazine. Let me read that. The other day, one of our boys bought at a bookstore an elaborate volume entitled Etiquette Up to Date. Now, remember, way back when. Edited by Annie Randall White and published by George M. Hill and Company, New York and Chicago. In running it through, he was surprised to find under the head of Real and Fancied Wrongs, Our Sure Remedy leaflet, copied in full with the following prefix by the author. So it's an article about another article. You can get lost in that. There comes to nearly every individual at times in life hours of suspicion, envy, gloom, distrust, and even hatred. In order to make these hours as few as possible and to make the rallying from them a permanent one, let us look them square in the face and see what is their cause and how they may be overcome. Wrongs of every nature, whether real or fancied, warp the judgment, sour the disposition, and render those who possess them unlovable to all with whom they come in contact. Until these faults can be mastered, one will always appear to disadvantage. If anyone has really done you an injustice, if they have wronged you, forgive them and bury the sorrow so everlastingly deep as to make it impossible to unearth it again. This is God's way. It is sometimes hard to do, but it can be done. read over many times what Charles Fillmore says on this subject. I reproduce his remedy below, where the words first appeared. I know not, and whether they have been preserved at all in book form, but this I know. A prominent physician in Chicago has had hundreds of them printed and given a copy to each patient who comes for advice. Try Mr. Fillmore's remedy and see the effect. Well, this Sure Remedy leaflet at 2 cents per copy, $1 for 100. Anyone can have it printed and use it any way they see fit, with or without the author's name. There's no copyright on it. Whatever we write that is true belongs to truth, and we trust truth to take care of it. Wow. So doctor sharing this. Now, I have taught healing for many, many years. And probably for more than 40 years, I've been trying to write this book. And I had to retire to write this book. I don't know how ministers write books and still do ministry. I never could figure that out. They either put together a collection of their 20 favorite sermons and call that a book, or they're not ministering to their flock. I just don't know how that happens. So I retired and wrote it. And it took several months. And then there's a good friend of mine, Sammy Smith, who's with us today. And he said, John, can I have a look at that? I'd be happy to edit it for you. And he publishes two magazines, one on clowning and one on magicianship. And I said, yeah, take a look. And so today, in honor of Sammy, I'm wearing a clown tie. So it's a maiden voyage. I'll be wearing it again soon, but my clown tie. But he published it for me, and it's been out, and I love it. He loves it too. And some of you will come and share with me in that workshop. But anyway, maybe Mark will like it, and he may digitize it like he's done so many other stuff. We'll see. That puts a lot of pressure on you, doesn't it? You don't have to do that. You don't have to do it. So, the Sure Remedy. And one of the components of healing is forgiveness. And I have met with a lot of people seeking healing. When I was director of Silent Unity, I asked to see all the letters where people had answered prayers and they were giving thanks. And I also wanted to see all the complaints. I want to know what areas we were not serving well. And so, but I kept collections of those, and it belongs to the school, not to me, but these magnificent stories of healing. But in my ministry, pastoring, talk to people about forgiveness. If you want to be healed. It also, if you want to be prosperous, by the way, forgive. But people say, well, if you knew what he did or what she did or la, 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 you wouldn't forgive either. And I said, maybe not. But then I would not be healed either. And so forgiveness is a key component of this. But your ego will argue against it, won't it? Yeah, I want to get him back. And we get into sometimes fight or flight reaction. And what we need to do to heal is forgive. And when I was rereading this article by Charles, I was sure he died before I was born, but he knew something about me. And he wrote this article for me. I'm sure he knew someday there'll be an upstart Unity minister who needs to know something about forgiveness. And boy, howdy, that's a Southern expression. I have needed this. I've needed this. Here is a mental treatment, he says, that is guaranteed to cure every ill that the flesh is heir to. Let me stop right there. My father was a surgeon. My brother is an allergist, immunologist, men of science, who both felt that I threw away my family brains when I became a Unity minister, but I didn't. And they would say, well, I don't know that it'll cure every ill, but it will certainly emotionally cure. At the soul level, it'll cure. And the soul and emotional, mental feeling has to happen in order for the bodily healing to take place. I know that was true in my life when doctors told me you could not be healed. So you had to do it. And boy, I was not ready to forgive. You know, the day I got ordained on this very stage, I think the second class of ministerial students that got ordained on this. After that, in the reception after, one of my classmates said, John, now that you're an ordained minister, you will never be angry again. I said, wow, because I got a piece of paper and walked across a stage, I won't be angry. He said, no, now you will have righteous indignation. But friends, righteous indignation has the same effect on the body and the mind and the emotions. You can call it what you like. It'll still be needing forgiveness. It will still be unforgiveness. There was a time, I think Mark Twain said, if you call his tail a leg, how many legs will a dog have? Well, 5. He said, no, he won't. He's only going to have 4. It doesn't matter what you call his tail, it's still a tail. So I don't care if you call it righteous indignation, it's anger, it's fear, it's all of that sort of stuff, and it leads to depression, and it compromises the immune system. So, sit for a half hour, says Fillmore, every night and mentally forgive everyone against whom you have ill will or antipathy. Every night? Every night. About 20 years ago, I was rooming with a unity minister, a great unity minister. We were at a retreat. And he said, John, don't talk to me first thing in the morning because I will be meditating for a half an hour. And I said, well, la-dee-da. He said, John, don't be that way. My wife went to this week-long retreat in the silence. She came home and said, don't talk to me in the morning. Don't turn on the TV or the radio because I will be meditating. And I said, la-dee-da. She said, no, don't be that way. But I realized, though I had been in ministry a long time, I did not meditate every day. I told others to do it, but 20 years ago, I made the commitment every morning and every evening, and I have not missed a day. Now, that's not because I'm better than anybody else, probably because I'm worse. I need it, but I believe you are building your spiritual muscles when you do that. Yeah. I had a friend in a church, a very dear friend, in fact, a prayer partner. He had life-saving emergency surgery. And he said to me after he recovered, boy, this affirmation prayer stuff, it doesn't really work when your life's on the table and and they're preparing you for emergency surgery. I said, well, tell me about your prayer life. I said, he said, what do you mean? Do you pray and meditate every day? Well, no. No, so you want some special incantation of your minister to come in and wave his arms and touch your head and kick your crutches away and suddenly you'll be healed. You've got to build it up every day. This is what Fillmore says. If you fear or if you are prejudiced against even an animal, mentally ask forgiveness of it and send it thoughts of love. If you have accused anyone of injustice, you know, there's a climate in this country that is very divided. Have you noticed? And certain people in positions of authority, I have a difference of opinion about a lot of things about them. And I have accused them outwardly and inwardly of, well, let's just say be different from me in my views of life. With a lot of emotion. What does that do? Hurts me, doesn't it? It hurts me. If you have criticized or gossiped about anyone, how could Fillmore have known even before I was born? Withdraw your words by asking him in the silence to forgive you. If you have had a falling out with friends or relatives. You know, here's the thing. And in the daily word today about forgiveness, and it says forgive 77 times. You know, the older translation said 70 times 7. And I always said, you know, does that mean when you get to 490 times, you don't have to forgive anymore? Now, who would be someone you know that you would have to forgive 490 times? A relative, a spouse, a child, or a parent, you know. It's like, whoa. Most of others, you're not around them enough that they have offended you that many times. But he wasn't saying a number, was he? As much as it takes. As much as it takes. As much as it takes. See all things and all persons as they really are, pure spirit, and send them your strongest thoughts of love. Do not go to bed any night feeling that you have an enemy in the world. I'm not going to say take the pledge with me here, but don't hold your hand up because I'm just being silly. But what if you did that? You'd sleep better, wouldn't you? Nothing worse than going to bed mad at somebody. Be careful not to think a thought or to say a word that will offend. Be patient, loving, and kind under all circumstances. You know, patience is one of the, something I've added. I meditate on the 12 powers every day. And I've added a couple of powers that I just thought I needed. And some said, well, if you did the 12 powers, it would be fine. I said, well, why not add? One of them's patience. And some said, don't ask for patience because then you'll have all these opportunities to express it. But my prayer for patience was for many years, God, give me patience and give it to me now. Patience. You can do this if you're faithful to the silent hour. Remember, Mr. Fillmore dedicated himself to that silent hour every day. Because there you will be helped to overcome the selfishness of the carnal sense. You don't have to raise your hands. You don't even have to look at me when I say, but any of you have selfishness of the carnal sense? Yeah, we're all in this together. I'm not the only one here, right? Am I just talking to myself today? I am talking to myself, and thank you for showing up, and that's good. There's an immutable law lying back of this healing method. God is love, and love is manifest as life. Now, love is also one of the components of healing. We'll talk about that. You're not going to be healed without love. Love's the greatest healer of all, especially if it's freely, unconditionally given. Not this, I'll love you if you give me what I want. I love you as long as it doesn't put me out too much, you know, as long as it feels good, you know, it's like, ugh. But then, no, unconditional love. If we do aught to cut off the love of any person, we're cutting off the love of God. Hence, we're cutting off the life that flows through all. Get that? Yeah. When we, by withdrawal from our fellows, in any way cut the cords of love that bind us together as men and women, we at the same time sever the arteries and veins through which the universal life flows. We then find ourselves mere bundles of strained nerves, trembling and shaking with fear and weakness, and finally dying for the lack of God's love. But it's not God outside of us. It's the love inside of us that is love itself, is God's self within us. Omnipresent Spirit ever seeks to flow into us and to stimulate us in every faculty. We must, however, by our words and acts acknowledge this all-powerful presence as a moving factor in our life, because each of us has inherent free will which welcomes or rejects all, even God not being accepted. You see, God does not force God upon us. Woo! You have the ability to say no to God. But why would you? Because I know better than God. Have you ever argued with God and won? Not me. I've argued with God. And every time God wins. Isn't that strange? But God still does not force God upon us. Self-condemnation is also a great error. Am I the only one that's ever done that? Oh, I didn't live up to my expectations. I wasn't good enough. And it leads to dire results. If you have accused yourself of ignorance, foolishness, fear, sickness, anxiety, poverty, anger, jealousy, stinginess, or weakness, or if you are melancholy and indulge in the blues. You indulge in the blues? I have. I know what that's like. And you know when you indulge in the blues, what happens? You get in friendship with others who indulge in the blues. And you know what happens then? You have pity parties. And then you have, well, you think your life is bad. Let me tell you how bad mine is. Yours can't be as bad as mine. And then we have this, I can top this in my negativity. I went through that foolishness. And I came back to unity and started living the principle. And I said to my friends, you know, life can be good. We can change our thoughts. We can change our thinking. And you know what they said? You can't believe that. You can't believe that. I said, yes, I can. And I had to leave that friendship behind. Still love those people. But I don't want to be around them. Because that energy communicates, doesn't it? And it rubs off. And suddenly you have become one of them. Wow. say often this to the omnipresent: I do now sacrifice these human limitations unto thee, O Father. Not a father outside of us, not a man, or father, it could be mother, but it's the divine mind, the divine presence. I am obedient unto the law of my being, and I know that in thee I am brave, true, energetic, wise, pure, perfect, strong, rich, and courageous. Is that what you want? Let me hear some more whoop. Who's doing that whoop? Whoop. Yeah, man. You know, there was a time I was invited to be a guest speaker in Barbara King's church, a magnificent African-American minister who built a very large ministry in Atlanta. And when you talk in those churches, they talk back to you. Don't they? Am I right? And then I got on fire. And some of the people from my church, where we are lightly complected and sit on our hands during service, they said to me, John, I've never heard you preach like that. Talk to me. Talk to me. Yeah. I am brave and true and energetic and wise and perfect and strong and rich and courageous. Yeah, that's to me. That's to me. All right, well, I'm looking at that clock and I realize, oh my gosh, I've overdone my time. But did you get a handout? No? Give me some money and you can have this. And no, I'm kidding. Here, you didn't get this? Thank you. That's an empty wrapper. People say, how do you forgive when you got all this heart hurt and they did all stuff to you? We believe in the power of the spoken word. And sometimes Mr. Fillmore had to say an affirmation hundreds or thousands of times, and I have discovered I am no better than Charles. And this is what I take a traditional unity affirmation. I love you, I bless you, I appreciate you, and then I say, I forgive you, and I release you to your highest good. And they say, well, what if you don't? Your feelings will eventually follow your predominant thought pattern. And I say it until it no longer has a charge to me and I know I'm done. And then I turn it around and say, I am loved, I am blessed, I am appreciated, I am forgiven, and I'm released to my highest good. And they say, well, what if the other person doesn't feel that way about you? The God in them does, the I am in them does, right? And then as I worked with this for many years, and that was very beneficial to me in all kinds of relationships, work and personal and so forth. And I said, you know, if that person felt good about himself or herself, then that person wouldn't offend me. And so I said, you love yourself, you bless yourself, you appreciate yourself, you forgive yourself, and you release yourself to your highest good. And then I came to the hard one. What is that? I love myself, I bless myself, I appreciate myself, I forgive myself, and I release myself to my highest good. And I will say that over and over and again. I will do it at morning and night, and whenever I think of that person and that contention. And I love the song by Janet Bowser Manning. She left this earth plane last year, but I am free, I am unlimited. There are no chains that bind me. I am free, I am unlimited. When? Right now, right now. So I give this to you, and all you have to give me in return is an empty candy wrapper. I love this man, and he's a great friend. This is how I do the forgiveness. And whenever I have that need, it could be at work, it could be at home, it could be with family. And I want you to take that, and I want you to work that. If you want to be healed, this is a necessary ingredient for the healing formula for your life. And then you are free, you are unlimited. There are no chains that bind you. You are free, you are unlimited. When? Right now. Right now. God bless you. God bless you.